Okay, we're going to be looking at how to install the components that you need to do Java. All right, so the first thing we need to figure out for coding in Java is the tools that we need, and Java operates with a combination of technologies. The first thing that we need is to have what we call the Java Runtime Environment, also known as the Java Virtual Machine. And that's a software package that allows you to run Java software on whatever type of computer you're using. The other thing that we need in order to create Java programs is what we call the JDK, the Java Development Kit. And we're going to work with the Java Standard Edition JDK. And I'm going to show you where you can download that. In fact, I'm actually just going to do a simple search. I do have links on the resources page to the Oracle site where you can get this. But you can just say Java SE download. That's probably adequate. And notice how that comes up. It points us to the Oracle website. And I'm just going to go ahead and click directly on that link. And you can see that the current version of Java is Java SE 15. Now, the inclination that you'll have immediately is to go ahead and download this. But I might caution you, there's a slight possibility you might already have this on your computer. So why don't we go ahead and just do a really quick search here. I'm just going to go to my Start menu, and I'm going to type Java. And then you're going to see, in fact, I'm going to type Java SE and see if anything comes up. Nothing's coming up. The other thing that I'm just going to do here is type Settings, bring up my Settings app, and then inside here I'm going to search for Java and see if it comes up with anything. It's not coming up with anything. It doesn't mean that I don't have Java. In fact, one of the indicators that you do have Java is simply to look for it on your hard drive. Now, some of you might want to do this, and some of you might just want to watch. My guess is that most of you don't have it. But I'm going to go to my C drive, and I'm going to go to my program files, and I'm going to look here real carefully for a Java folder, and then notice how I have these JDKs and JREs here. So I have some of this stuff already. Okay, some of you might, most of you won't. The reality is that there's no harm done in reinstalling something that's already there. It'll just recognize that it's there, or maybe it's a newer version, and it'll go over the old version. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the JDK. And notice that they have important license agreements here, and it says, so where can we download it from? Aha, here we go. So down here at the bottom, they have a list of all their download packages. And I want you to be careful here, because Java is designed to run on just about any platform. You'll notice that there's lots for Linux, for the Mac, and Windows, of course, is way at the bottom, at least in this. And why is it at the bottom? Well, it's alphabetical. It's not because it's least important. You know, they just do it alphabetically. What you'll want is the Windows X64 Installer, and it's an exe file. So some of your computers might scream at you that this is an executable file and won't let you download it if you have antivirus software. I just want to prepare you for that. If your antivirus software allows you to override that, do that. If you have problems with that, choose the zip file instead. So I'm going to go ahead and download that, and it's going to pull it down to my machine. It's a fairly large download. It's 160 meg. Depending on your internet connection, it should take just a few seconds. All right. We'll give it a chance to load up here, and it looks all good. So now I'm going to go to my download area, and for those of you that aren't really familiar with maybe even downloading software and installing it, this might be a new experience for you as well. Is there anybody in that category that's never installed software on Windows before? All right. Brittany, are you following along with me okay? Okay, great. But if I'm using Google Chrome as my browser, and whenever I download something into Google Chrome, it brings up this bar at the bottom that shows me my downloads. If you're using Firefox, Firefox usually has indicators up at the top, And I'm not really sure what Microsoft Edge has, but I know that there are menu ways to be able to get to your downloads if you need to. I'm a big fan of using Google Chrome for doing this type of stuff, and so when it finishes downloading, I usually choose to go show this in folder. So I go to the location where it's installed, and you can see it's right here in my downloads folder. Now I'm going to double click this to execute the installer. So I'm going to get the installer going. Depending on how your version of Windows is configured, Windows may ask you if this piece of software is safe, if you approve, and you can see my device is doing the same thing. Because whenever you download anything from the internet, there's always this possibility that it's malicious. So they want to make sure that you're sure what you're doing before you go ahead and do it. All right, so that is executing in the background. You can see the little hourglass that's popping up, and now the installer is appearing. And it's asked me to proceed. So it says, welcome to the installation wizard, blah, 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 next. Doesn't really matter too much what that says. It's asking me where would I like to install this. Go with the default. It'll be in the program files folder. Let it do exactly what it wants to do. And then it will start to do the process of the installation. The installation is, fairly large. It shouldn't take too long to go through. So I'm going to see if I can just keep talking through it. Right now the progress meter isn't moving at all, but I believe that it is doing something in the background. All right, that was pretty quick. And now it's doing some more stuff. I'm going to let it do its thing. And apparently I don't have this version of the JDK. If I did, it would tell me, you already have this installed, you're good. If you don't, it will go ahead and do it. We'll let it finish its work. And it tells us it's successfully installed. And notice they have this other button here that says Next Steps. And it says, click Next Steps to access tutorials, API documentation, developer guides, release notes, and more. And that will help you get started with this. And if you want, feel free to click on that and explore to your heart's content. I am not going to take that option, because I know where it goes, and it's nothing I really want to participate in right now. But as newbies to this, if you're new to it, feel free to explore, no harm done. Look at the tools that they have. I'm going to go ahead and close this window, and now I know that I have that piece, which is called the JDK, installed. The next thing that we need is the Java Runtime Environment. And so I'm going to go back to this page here, and I'm going to do a search this time on their site. And sometimes I'm a little reluctant to do that because I think Google does a better search on people's sites than sometimes the search engine on a site does, but that, that's a personal preference. So I'm just going to say Java JRE download. All right, and notice how a thing pops up in their search thing that says, where do I download the Java Runtime Environment? That's right where I want to go, because that's the tool we want, the Java Runtime Environment. And this is a tool more likely than the previous tool that we installed that might already be on your system, by the way. Much more likely, especially if you've ever loaded any software that requires Java. Now, Jabari, I hear that your dad's practicing in the background.
Wait, can you hear that?
I can, but it's okay. I muted you, and normally I would probably enjoy listening to him.
Oh yeah, that's sorry. He does it like every day.
Well, that's what you have to do when you're a musician. So you have to practice every day. All right, so here we land on the download page for the JRE. And just to explain what this piece is, this is the piece that allows your Java programs to run. If you do not have this installed on your computer, you cannot run Java programs. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. If you're on Linux, if you're on a Mac OS or Windows, this is a required component. Some of the Linux and Unix and Mac OS operating systems sometimes come pre-installed with this. Certain distributions of Linux do. With the Mac OS, you still have to install it, and they're not always, Apple's not always too keen on allowing this to install, but you can install it on the Mac. You probably get a lot more flags than a Windows user. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and agree and start the free download. And you can see another executable file is downloading. This one should go a little bit faster. Now, chances are that the runtime environment that's here, I might already have this one because I do have Java installed and I allow it to update automatically. But no harm done in reinstalling it. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and go to Show It in Folder. Here it is. I'm going to double click and run it. Once again, it's asking me if I want to make changes. I'm going to approve. And now we're just waiting for the installer to come up on the screen. All right. All right, it says this version is blah, 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 blah. Of course, you can change your destination folder, but ultimately you're going to go ahead and install it. Now notice how mine has a remove button, and I'm going to guess that most of you that don't have this installed won't have the remove button. Is that correct? Or does everybody already have Java installed? You do not want to hit remove because that will do exactly what it says. You'll be removing it instead of installing it. So I get students that do this from time to time. We want to do the install. I'm not sure if it will. Okay, well, apparently this is a newer version than the one on my machine, so it's doing it. And once we get this piece in place, believe it or not, we'll have everything we need to actually code if we want to. What we will do in addition, though, is we will add one more piece of software. And in fact, if we have enough time, we'll even do two pieces of software, I'm hoping. So this is installing the Java Runtime Environment, or what some people will call the JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Synonymous, basically. Looks like it's just about done. Isn't it funny how, like, whenever you see these progress meters on a computer, like the first part of the progress is always really fast and it gets to the end and that's the slowest part. Like it's stuck on like 99%. Okay, so now it's noticing it says out-of-date Java versions detected. Keeping out-of-date versions may present a security risk. Now, it's asking me to uninstall them. Personally, I am not going to do that because I have very specific reasons that I have these versions on here. For you, though, if you have older versions, I would actually recommend that you do remove them because it will only create conflicts. I have old versions on here for coding in old environments, and I'm going to leave them alone, and I'm just going to say, not now. Okay? And here it says, what the results were. It detected the out-of-date versions, but they still sit there. We're going to next. And I think now is when they kind of, do some like advertising to us here. It says some security prompts have been hidden when you select don't show this again. You can improve the security of personal information by restoring these every... I'm not going to restore them because I trust myself to know when something's safe or not. Otherwise, I would suggest that you leave it on. If you consider yourself savvy, I would say leave that checked. If you're not sure, leave it checked is the safe thing. You can always uncheck it later, is the point. All right, it says we successfully installed Java, and I'm going to close the window, and those two tools are installed. So we have the JRE and the JDK. Now, once again, just for acronym sake, what is JDK? If I just search JDK, Java Development Kit. If I search JRE, what's JRE? Java Runtime Environment. Java Runtime? That's backwards. But that's what it is. Those are the two tools that we just installed. Now, given those two tools, you can run Java programs, and if you have a text editor, you can code them. right? But it's helpful to have a higher level tool to do the coding. The first one I'm going to point you to try is a tool called JGrasp, and it's spelled J and the word grasp, so you just search that term. I have a link to this, by the way, on the resources page. And I'm going to go ahead and go to their homepage, and you see it's not a very fancy homepage, but they do have a spot here where you can download. It's kind of small text, and then they have a link over here on the side. I'll click the one on the side. All right, and then they're going to have these not so user-friendly looking pages, but these are pages provided by a university, probably coded by students, and a little primitive look, but you know what? The stuff is there, and that's really what the important thing is. They do ask, and this is optional, by the way, that you fill out this user survey. So if you want to fill this out at the top, you can feel free and do that. Otherwise, you can go directly to the latest release of JGrasp. And you'll notice here that this very first box with the green buttons has what we need. And if you're a Windows user, you go ahead and grab the exe file. If you're a Mac OS or Linux user, you can grab the archive files there. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Windows file since I'm on a Windows machine. And I do already have this installed, but I know that this is a newer version, so I'm going to let it do an upgrade. Once again, I'm going to go to Show in Folder to see that it's there. Double click to run. My operating system will probably warn me. There it goes. We'll say yes. And the installer will launch. All right, we'll go ahead and say next. The license terms, I agree. And then some options. Do you want a desktop shortcut? My feeling, I personally don't like them, so I'm unchecking that. And then, notice as I hover over these items, it tells you what is needed. So you have to have the core files. You don't have to have the desktop. But what's admin? File and registry items necessary to have centralized administrator set. No, I'm not worried about it. So I'm going to skip that one. And I would suggest for all of you that you do the same. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. It's choosing a file location. I'm okay with that. Start menu folder, sure. And then finally, it's going to ask to take control of all the Java file formats and other coding languages. Now, for the first time, if you're installing, you know what, this is okay. Go ahead and leave it checked. Personally, I don't want it to handle any of these files. Really what these settings indicate is whenever you see this type of file in your computer, you want this program to be the one that opens them. And I do not want that to be the case. I prefer other tools. So I'm unchecking all of them with intent. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Install, and it is loading the product. It seems to be playing well with the old version. It didn't ask me to uninstall or anything, and that's okay. It really does not take up too much space on the machine, and it says it is all done. Now that it's installed, I'm just going to give it a trial run. So I'm going to go to my Start menu, and I'm just going to start typing JGR, and you see how it came up. Not a very beautiful icon, but there it is. And I'm going to launch JGrasp and just see if it runs. So far, so good. Sometimes when people launch this and try to run it, they get error messages. So this is why I have you try it. It looks like they have some sort of a welcome screen here. It says sample Java code, and oh, we get to select a theme. Hey, metal. Ooh, cool. So you can choose the one you like. I'll go with this one, and choose next. And then they have an announcement here. Oh, check this out, Dennis. They have a JGrasp plugin for IntelliJ. Isn't that interesting? But I'm not too worried about that right now. We're just going to go ahead and click Finish. All right. So now as you get into the program, you'll notice that I already have code loaded up into mine because I've already had this installed in the past. And we will discuss how the product works next time around. We are right at 9:50, folks, and you know what? We got a lot farther than I thought we would tonight, which is fantastic. Next week, what I hope to do is to also install an additional IDE, but if you want to get a jump start on it, let me show you where and how to download it. The product I would like you to download is a piece of software called Eclipse, and you can just type Eclipse download, just like that, and do a search. And you'll take you right, the first hit should be the Eclipse download page. Just click on it. I also want to remind you, those of you that are in the session right now, if I'm going too fast, I am videoing this and I will release it tomorrow so you guys can watch it tomorrow. So if you're taking copious notes, you know, it'll be right here. So here we are, and you can go ahead and click the download link and then basically follow the instructions. Now, the thing that's interesting about that is I think that maybe I'll go through that aspect of it next time around, because I just did the download of this earlier today for Java 2 for my Java 2 students. But the process is basically download and follow the prompts. When you are given an option of what to choose in terms of development environment, you want to choose Java SE for your development environment. Java SE. And by the way, SE stands for Standard Edition. And all beginning Java programmers start there. The beautiful thing about Eclipse as a product, aside from the fact that it's completely free, it is the preeminent tool used by professionals. And because it's an open source, what I call extendable piece of software, many people have created custom implementations of Eclipse for very specific reasons, for languages other than Java. And it's pretty crazy how many different versions are out there. But we're looking for the standard edition Java programming version of Eclipse. What I will do next week, and I guess I'll leave this in the video, is we will start with text editor programming. We'll jump into JGrasp, and then probably by week 2 or 3, I'm going to transition us into Eclipse, and we will stay there for the remainder of the course. That is probably the best tool to get to know, and if you only have one Java course in your life, I want to make sure that you get exposed to Eclipse so that you're ready for the professional world, if that's what it comes down to. Folks, thank you for being here tonight. Class is now officially over. Before we end, and let me actually stop the video from recording here. So this video ends right now.